Have you ever heard the statement, if I've hurt you, you must have deserved it? You may not have heard this from someone directly, I hope not, or you may not have heard someone say to someone else. You may have seen it online as a meme, or things that are similar to it. If I hurt you, you must have deserved it. That statement implies that individual is never wrong and it's the fault of the other individual. Imagine someone robs you, stabs you, runs you over with a car, or they flat out ignore you out of the blue, or they act in a horrible way towards you. Who's the one doing it? They are. Now, if you were the one being abusive towards someone else and they just decide, you know what, I'm out of here, they become insensitive towards you, just preserve themselves, that's different. But if they're the ones who are on the offensive, act out against you based on how they decide to feel about you, they are the bad news. But hey, for them to own up that they were the bad news means now that they need to admit that they have no credibility, no virtues, and that means that they lose not only their reputation, but the right to speak. Now they're under obligation to make this up as far as they can. And in the future, people will put extra checks on them. So no more running away, no more being left alone, no more don't want to be bothered, no more I will, free choice, blah blah blah. No. You owe others, others owe you. You fail or you are the bad news, you need to improve. Simple as that. That means you are not God, you're not in charge, you have no sovereignty because you're not a deity. So this whole fiction of independence that toxic and dangerous people have is also, I don't have to admit, their human vulnerability. Toxic and dangerous people can't stand their own human vulnerability. But the problem is you are a vulnerable creature. So you hate your own vulnerability, sorry, but who's out of their mind? You are. But because they don't want to admit how contradictory and how unstable they are, they will project this instability elsewhere. So if they cut off someone in traffic, almost caused an accident, it must be the fault of the other individual. If they got so-called pissed off and acted wild, it's the fault of the other to piss them off. They should have watched out not to piss them off. It's never them actually being wrong and need to own out to it and improve. If you're wrong, admit you're wrong and you can be better. Now, if you're dealing with people who just want to admit you're wrong so they can offload on you, I can understand in that situation you won't admit to them you're wrong, but you also admit to yourself you're wrong so that you can improve. But that's the thing with toxic and dangerous people, they can't improve because they won't own up to the fact they're not doing well. They don't want to own up to the fact they're unstable. So people like that, be guaranteed of the following. They will always cause problems and conflicts just to put the other individual, where the other individual is, in negative daylight. By putting the other in negative daylight, and they know that there are a lot of people like them on the earth who will join them in whatever they're doing, by putting the other in negative daylight, the attention off of them. So people don't notice their inconsistencies, their narcissism, their selfishness, and their abusive attitude. Because toxic and dangerous people, they are abusive. Now, some toxic people are not aware they're toxic, they're not evil, they just need help, that's different. But in the long run, if you're left unchecked, they will become abusive, inconsiderate, and highly demanding. But let's think further. This whole idea of, oh, if I hurt you, you must deserve it. Doesn't society operate the same way? If someone's been arrested by the police, we automatically assume, well, they must have done something wrong, or there must be a good reason why the police did it. If someone's fired from a job, we say, well, maybe they didn't perform well, or whatever. Or if, let's give another example. If someone is talented with quality, but they can't get a high-paying job or they don't get any business investment, people will likely assume, well, there must be something wrong with them, maybe it's not meant for them. Haven't you noticed at any time in society, someone is victimized, done dirty, and there is proof that it doesn't end up. People tend to sugarcoat situation, trying to either blame the victim or act like it wasn't that bad, or they try to make excuses for the attacker or the perpetrator. Let me tell you why. Worldlings out there, they either lack self-worth or they have no self-worth whatsoever. So the way they compensate for this lack of self-worth is by controlling one another. But nobody wants to be controlled by someone else. But people in the world have a perfect time controlling others, even threatening you with being fired, becoming homeless, with being injured physically, or even end up in prison or whatever. Or they just abandon you, they ghost you, like you don't exist. So they don't want it to be done to them, but are perfectly fine doing to others with excuses. They know they can't justify this. They know if this comes out about them, they lose face, they lose credibility, and when that happens, they have no mental stability left whatsoever. They collapse internally. None of them want to go through that. So anytime this predatory nature of society comes to the light, people tend to sugarcoat it. And in the worst case scenario, they tend to get rid of the victims. Instead of being upset with the perpetrators, they get upset with the victims. Let me tell you why. If they get upset with the perpetrators, those same perpetrators would call them and say, hey, you're just like me. You do exactly the same thing. I want to be left alone, I want to escape, so I look for someone to take it out on. You guys do the same thing, but in a group. And because people don't want to be called out, they think, you know what, I'm not going to call out the perpetrator. You know what? It's your fault. You must deserve it, or you must have the big mouth, or you should have listened, or you should this. They're going to look for some weird, stupid, nonsensical reason why it's the fault of the victim, so that they don't have to be challenged internally. Worldly people, by default, I'm not saying everyone, there are exceptions, but by default, worldly people, both as a collective and often, not always, others individuals, are not stable. They need someone else looked down upon to feel better about themselves and to remain stable and functional. So worldlings are like junkies, and some like vampires. I'm not saying all of them are narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths. No. There are people of good quality in the world. But nevertheless, this fleeing condition of theirs, which the Bible calls sin, makes them unstable in the long run. So, understand, society is not about justice. It's not about fairness. It's all about the masses escaping. And anytime there's escapism gets out of hand, they look for an outlet to victimize. So society itself is unjust and cannot operate without injustice. Now, are there human beings who want justice? Yes, there are human beings who want justice. Sometimes you have whole movements of people that want justice. That can happen. Society as a structure itself is not about justice. It's rooted in injustice, and society itself is an injustice. How can injustice bring forth justice? It's not going to happen. So when society, I'm not talking about individual people, when society talks about justice, it's all about taking revenge on people that disrupted their ease. That's all it is. I'm telling you, society is not about justice, and society cannot operate when there's justice. Because the whole thing of society is that adults want to escape, remain unbothered in a cyclical way. You want to operate in cycles to escape collectively. Because if everyone escapes their own way, everything's chaotic, nothing works out, and there's only frustration. They don't want that. But on the other hand, they don't want full justice either. They want to stay in between. They don't want to be cold, because then nothing works and they're all losing, but don't want to be hot too, fully operating in justice, serving the Heavenly Father. They want to be in between, and they come up with excuses why it's okay for them to be in between. That's how they are. So understand the following. Society may admit you were done wrong, but for them to acknowledge you were done wrong means that they would have to expose themselves as a collective, and they don't want to go there. They may admit you were done wrong and focus all their attention on catching the bad guy or the perpetrator, whether the perpetrator was your ex-husband, ex-wife, or the company that exploited you, or some political party. They're okay doing that. They are perfectly fine doing witch hunts. Society loves witch hunts. They do. Why? Because in a witch hunt, the negative focus will be on the people you're doing a witch hunt on, whether they're actual witches or whether they're bankers or whether they are single mothers or whatever. In a witch hunt, people agree those people need to go. If they go, everything gets better. The problem with the witch hunt is the assumption that if you get rid of certain people, everything's going to be better. 9 out of 10 times it's not true. Because the dysfunction doesn't only come from those people you want to get rid of. Dysfunction is something deep inside the public. But because nobody wants to look into the mirror, I'm talking about figuratively speaking, there are some people who do look in the mirror and want to be better. But because in general, people don't want to look in the mirror or not to themselves and face other people, because they don't want to go through this, they tend to go for a witch hunt. Witch hunts are common to society because society itself is a collective witch hunt on everyone who doesn't escape in a way the collective prescribes. Some of these rules are unwritten, people just ghost you and neglect you. Others are codified and act out by institutions. Think about the police, think about the courthouse, think about the government. But where the rules are written unwritten, society is all about keeping everyone in a cycle of relief. And from time to time, they need to give off steam, and they give off steam to people who can't fight back and defend themselves. So society is predatory in nature. Society is a narcissist. So if an individual human being behaves the same way society does, we would be horrified thinking, what the heck is this? Hold on a minute. A lot of people give in and even justify and condone and participate in it when the collective is doing it. And this inconsistency about follow mankind. That's why as a believer, you're in the world, or what the world calls society, you're in society, but not of it. You participate when it comes to practical things like traffic rules, paying the same currency, not harming other people and all of that. Those are the practical things you comply with. The moment things go too far, you step out. That's how beliefs need to be. You're in it, but not of it. Too many believers, because they don't walk by faith, and therefore they have no power, they have nothing to counter the violence of the masses. That's why they give in and even become part of the violence of the masses. This shouldn't be us. I agree with Christ, walk by faith, and realize the world hated Christ. Because Christ is the one victim they cannot get rid of. He's the victim whom the Bible symbolizes as the lamb was slain, that is risen. And there's one society cannot handle. That's when their violence doesn't work. Because when the violence doesn't work, it will backfire. And once it backfires, you only have losses. You lose anyway when you use violence. But if you have a victim, the victim loses more. And because you lose less than the victim, you look good. But the moment violence backfires, and there's no way for you to have someone worse off than you, guess what? People lose it. They collapse. They can't take it anymore. That's why the world hates Christ. And if they hate Christ and you follow Christ, they'll hate you too eventually. They may not express it emotionally into your face, but they will express in policies in which they neglect you or divert away from you. You may be a barber with excellent talent in cutting people's hair, cutting people's beards and all that, men's beard and all of that. You can be an excellent barber, but people will still go to barbers with no experience, or they'll promote. You either keep complaining, and them keep complaining, they trigger people to go viral who are bad barbers. You're a quality barber over here with years of experience, but those who go viral are the ones with no quality or no talent or will give bad service. Why is this happening? Because people don't want to admit that you're the one with the value, because they need to admit and acknowledge you then. It's something personal. But because they can't say it to you openly, because it doesn't make sense, it will make them look stupid, they will act it out towards you. If they can't get rid of you directly, they will hinder you indirectly. Some people may verbally so-called support you, but in action to be absent from you. I'm telling you, the world hates Christ. If you are in line with Christ, they will hate you too. They will. Only few will act out openly when they realize that they have nothing left to lose anymore. But most people, because they still have something to lose, they will behave themselves. They are contained. So understand this, as a believer, a lot of people out there are contained. And that's why the behavior towards you is not directly violent. And you may assume because that they're okay with you, they're at peace with you. No. They're not at peace with you. They're not okay with you. Absolutely not. It's just that they can't afford to openly be your enemy and act out against you. But they still have issues against you. Why? Because they have issues against their Heavenly Father. And that's why now, in their contained state, they don't directly attack you or cause harm towards you, but they cause hinder towards you, and towards other people, and towards themselves. So, society loves witch hunts. Beware of being part of a witch hunt. Well, that's it for now. Keep it in Christ and be at peace.